Stone Cold Steve Austin is one of the biggest stars in wrestling history. X-rated, unapologetic, Austin captured the zeitgeist of the 90s and became the focal point of the WWE during its hottest period ever, the Attitude Era. With his no-Fs given attitude and love of dropping whoever was near him with a Stone Cold Stunner, Austin made a bevy of enemies, from fellow wrestlers to company officials and even entire companies themselves. If the Texas Rattlesnake had a problem with you, you had better be prepared for a fight. Of the many great feuds the Bionic Redneck engaged in, some were, of course, better than others. And if you'd like to know which ones, then gimme a hell yeah! But more importantly, shut up and watch this video. I'm Sam Driver from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the top 10 rivalries of Steve Austin. Join us. Number 10, WWE and WCW. Long before he was Stone Cold, Austin was stunning Steve in WCW, before Eric Bischoff fired him over the phone, that is. Incensed, Austin called his mate Paul Heyman, who allowed him to vent his spleen at WCW on ECW Hardcore TV, with Austin ripping everything from Bischoff to Mongo McMichael through WCW as an institution and all of the old codgers who wrestled for them. Austin, of course, had the last laugh joining WWE and becoming the biggest star in history. But when the invasion happened in late 2001, Austin put aside his hatred of WCW and joined the Alliance, leading to a fight against a WWE that no longer appreciated him. This led to some of the best heel work of Austin's career, and finally, the WWE audience had a reason to actually boo him. As the face of the Alliance, Austin held the WWE title almost at hostage and would frequently clash with Kurt Angle and The Rock, but more on them later. Eventually, WWE would emerge from the invasion victorious because, well, they were always gonna, weren't they? Number 9, Brian Pillman. When the Hollywood Blondes parted ways in WCW, they didn't get a proper breakup feud until both men found themselves in WWE in 1996. Pillman originally rekindled his alliance with Austin upon arriving in Titan Sports, but soon started cozying up with Austin's rival Bret Hart, leading Austin to brutally beat down Pillman and snap his ankle in half with a chair. And that is why we call it Pillmanizing, kids! The two would continue feuding as Pillman recovered, with Austin invading the Loose Cannon's home one night in October 1996. Austin had clearly forgotten that the Loose Cannon was, well, a loose cannon, as Pillman pulled a gun and attempted to murder Stone Cold in one of the most controversial segments in wrestling history. Pillman would officially join the Hart Foundation and assisted them in their war with Stone Cold, eventually lacing up his boots to fight Austin on Raw is War before the historic In Your House Canadian Stampede. The Foundation would emerge victorious from Canadian Stampede, but Austin wasn't done yet with the boys in pink and black. Number 8, Owen Hart. After Canadian Stampede, Austin shifted his focus toward Owen Hart, with the two having clashed in the tag division earlier in the year. Owen got the decisive pin on Austin at Canadian Stampede, and that was enough to spur Austin on, with the Rattlesnake looking to end Owen's Intercontinental title run. The two signed off for a match at SummerSlam 97, but if Austin lost, he'd have to kiss Owen's ass. Unfortunately though, this match is actually remembered for Owen breaking Austin's neck, a mistake that nearly ended Austin's career. With Austin on the shelf, Owen bragged about the incident, wearing an Owen 316 tee, taunting the new Intercontinental Champion from afar. Austin went on to vacate the title, but he made sure Owen would regain it, interfering on Hart's behalf, letting Owen know that when he was cleared, he'd be coming straight back for him. Several months later, and Austin was back and more popular than ever. At Survivor Series, Stone Cold defeated Hart once more for the Intercontinental title, and the Bionic Redneck took off into the stratosphere. Number 7, Shawn Michaels. Austin didn't like the Hart Foundation, Shawn Michaels didn't like the Hart Foundation, neither liked each other, but they put their differences to one side for a while to strip Owen Hart and British Bulldog of their tag titles in 1997. With the Hart Foundation dissolved after Montreal, HBK ran virtually unopposed at the top of the WWE totem pole, until Austin won the '98 Royal Rumble and set up a title clash with Michaels at WrestleMania 14. Austin, not known for playing well with others, had stacked the deck in Michael's favour by making enemies of all of D-Generation X, as well as Iron Mike Tyson, with DX memorably getting the upper hand in the weeks leading up to Mania. But all this did was piss Austin off. He would overcome the odds to sink a stunner and take home the gold, whilst Michaels ate a jab from the baddest man on the planet and retired from the business. Could have been worse though. If HBK didn't do the job, then Undertaker was allegedly waiting by the curtain ready to turn him into hamburger meat. And speaking of Big Mark, number 6, The Undertaker. Heading into SummerSlam 98, Taker and Austin were the two biggest babyfaces in WWE, but mind games from Taker, Kane, Paul Bearer, and seemingly everyone in between made Taker's intentions unclear. After a fantastic main event bout, Austin would leave SummerSlam with the gold still around his waist, but Taker would soon snap and become something close to satanic as he pursued Austin going into 1999. Taker would try and embalm Austin, normal, before Austin buried him alive. Again, completely normal, before summoning his Ministry of Darkness in a bid to take over the WWE with the help of a higher power. Normal behavior all round. After crucifying Austin, totally 100% normal, Taker would dethrone the Rattlesnake at Over the Edge 1999 before the higher power was revealed to disappointed jeers. Austin wouldn't take those insults lying down and took the title back on the June 28th Raw in one of the highest rated segments in WWE history. One last battle was slated for Fully Loaded, where Austin would again emerge victorious, leaving the corporate ministry in tatters. Number 5, Kurt Angle. During Austin's hiatus after Rikishi hit him with a car for Da Rock and Da People, Kurt Angle rose through the ranks of WWE, with his first reign as WWE Champion coinciding with Austin's return. The two would circle each other and wear little cowboy hats, but wouldn't engage in a full-on feud until the Invasion, after Austin hit Angle with a stunner to defect from Team WWE to the Alliance. Angle wanted Austin's WWE title, but Stone Cold was having none of it. Angle won the WCW title instead, but before he could face off with Austin, the Rattlesnake screwed Angle out of Big Goldie, then retained the WWE title at SummerSlam despite Angle winning by DQ. Kurt, however, would finally get his mitts on the title in front of a hometown Pittsburgh crowd at Unforgiven 2001. But just 2 weeks later, Austin would regain it, and the two would set their differences aside as Angle joined the Alliance? But it was all a ruse, because Angle would help The Rock topple Austin and kill the Alliance once and for all. Number 4, Triple H. By 1999, Triple H was ready for the big time, but Steve Austin refused to put him over at SummerSlam and dropped the WWE title to transitional champion Mankind instead. When Trips got the belt, he came back for Austin, beat him at No Mercy, and eventually gave Rikishi 20 quid to hit him with a car. When Austin returned later, he was understandably fuming, and proceeded to beat the absolute snot out of the game at Backlash 2000, allowing The Rock to regain the WWE title. Triple H vowed to end Austin once and for all, and attempted to run him over once more, but Austin picked up Hunter's car with a forklift and dropped it onto its roof. It was clear that neither man would be satisfied until the other was decimated, so they signed up for the first ever 3 stages of Hell match at No Way Out 2001. Triple H squeaked out a win, then a few months later the two became BFFs and reigned as the two-man power trip. And it just goes to show that real men are able to put vehicular assault behind them and move forward, folks. Number 3, Bret Hart. After Austin 316, the mood in the WWE started to change. Whereas once the virtuous, heroic Bret Hart had been at the forefront of the company, he was now on the verge of being left behind, a relic of past glories, and he did not like that one bit. Soon, Hart returned from a hiatus, crossed paths with Austin, and it went from 1 to 100 at the drop of a hat. Hart defeated Austin at Survivor Series, but Austin would cheat Hart out of the 1997 Royal Rumble, and then Hart would properly snap. The two were on a collision course for WrestleMania 13, and a submission match which would change both men's destinies. With Austin weeping blood from his head, Hart locked in the sharpshooter and caused Stone Cold to pass out, achieving the rarest of the rare, a double turn, while the match stood as one of the greatest in WWE history. Hart would then reform the Hart Foundation to help him drive Austin out of WWE. Although the foundation would win the feud, Austin was now the man. Number 2, The Rock. After dispatching Owen Hart, Intercontinental Champion Austin decided to beat up The Rock a bit before forfeiting the belt and launching it into a river. Of course. A year later, and The Rock was the corporate WWE champion, molded in Vince McMahon's image. Austin won the '98 Rumble and took on The Rock at WrestleMania 15, and despite corporate shenanigans, he toppled Rock and left with the gold. 2 years later, and the situation was the same. A face Rock was champion, and Royal Rumble winner Austin vowed that he needed to beat The Rock at WrestleMania X7. We never expected just how Austin would get the job done though, siding with Vince McMahon to bludgeon The Rock with a chair and beat him at Mania for a second time. Another 2 years later, and the two would clash at Mania for a third and final time, with both men wanting to prove who was the greatest superstar of all time. After 3 rock bottoms, Rock finally beat Stone Cold at Mania in what proved to be Steve Austin's final ever match. And number 1, Mr. McMahon. The feud that pretty much single-handedly won the Monday Night Wars and turned WWE into the hottest thing on the planet, the importance of Austin versus McMahon cannot be understated. The two, quite frankly, hated one another. McMahon hated that Austin wasn't a tie-wearing corporate player the Fed could be proud of, and Austin hated that McMahon was a stuck-up, stuffed shirt trying to ruin his buzz. The two did everything in their power to destroy one another, with McMahon constantly stacking the deck against Austin and Stone Cold planting everyone in his way with a Stone Cold Stunner. There were countless infamous moments between the two: the beer bath, Bang 316, McMahon in Austin's face, Austin in McMahon's face, and let's not forget the Corvette filled with cement, or the Zamboni, lots of vehicles and arrests basically. The two only fought in a handful of sanctioned singles matches, with Austin getting the win in a cage at St. Valentine's Day Massacre and Vince winning Royal Rumble 1999. Despite moments of alliance, McMahon and Austin are destined to do battle until the end of time.